Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of art. It's the Tenant Podcast, and I'm Todd Pearson, coming to you from the 40 West Arts District here in beautiful Lakewood, Colorado. And joining me from his podcast studio on the Road of Enchantment, your friend and mine, it's South Dakota's favorite son, Wes Brown.
Todd, oh my God, we're at it again. You can't stop us now.
I know. They can't cancel us,
That's
no matter
right.
what.
We're uncancelable. Well, my wife can, but...
Right, yeah. Just stamp your forehead, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Nope. They haven't come knocking on our doors because we don't like this administration.
That's
Not
right.
To, we'll go down the political rabbit hole already, but hey, you know what? They're nefarious, so we can say whatever we want.
That's right.
I hate bullies.
Until the Secret Service or the brown shirts come for us.
Yeah, well, whatever. They don't have enough resources. Power to the people, man.
Right. There we go.
Oh, I dislike them so much. I really do. I really try not to get too spun out on it, but I really just dislike what's happening in this country right at the moment. But I also remain hopeful. What?
Dick Cheney died today, and I never thought I would dislike somebody more than him. And by God, somebody else just...
There is somebody.
Yeah. There's always somebody else, right?
You win a prize.
That's right. Well,
just when you think you've experienced the most nefarious motherfucker that you've ever met.
That's right.
Or ever experienced, there comes another one. Yeah.
And I wasn't a big Liz Cheney fan until she was, making a stand, and now I have respect for her. So anyway, God rest his soul, and I hope he's had safe travels to the other side, and all those good things from my heart. I don't like to see anybody die. So
no.
Anyway,
what else has been going on? We're big documentary fans, and I just turned you on to a couple documentaries.
I haven't watched dude.
Oh, you haven't?
No, not yet.
All right,
but tell us. Let's hear it.
So I highly suggest the Devo documentary that's currently on Netflix. Even if you don't like their music, I think you'll have more of an appreciation of who they are and what they've accomplished and what they're all about. So definitely check out the Devo documentary.
And the Charlie Sheen one.
The Charlie Sheen was just compelling because it's, he was such a train wreck.
Yeah.
But, being growing up in the 80s and seeing a bunch of the movies that he was a part of, I thought was pretty interesting. And there's, he's a complex character.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you just want to turn your brain off and just kind of watch the train wreck, but he's also a really great actor, I think.
Yeah.
There's some virtue. Do you remember the first movie that you saw Charlie Sheen in?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It might be the one where he's, what was the name of that? Where he's in a car and he's kind of alienish. Do you know which one that is?
No, I have no idea.
Oh my God, really? All right.
Yeah. So for me, it was Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He makes that cameo, and he actually talks about the fact that he totally improv that whole thing.
Really?
So,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was probably one I've seen before that, but that's the one that comes to mind. It's like, what was the name? Wrath. That's what it was called. The Wrath.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind of futuristic, kind of interesting. What year was that? That came out in 1986.
1986. Interesting. Okay.
Oh, and he was in Red Dawn. That was 84. Young Guns.
Oh my God. Red Dawn. We're going to live Red Dawn here. Cal, are you ready for Red Dawn? Did you ever see that movie?
No, I never saw it.
Put it on your
never heard of
put it on your list, man. It's what we'll be doing here in the next couple years.
Yep. Fighting China or country of your choice.
Yeah.
Invasion, depending on, who was it that it was Cuban and Russian at that time. I think the remake is with the Chinese, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't see the
Koreans
remake.
Or something.
Yeah,
there's a remake.
I
think it didn't do very well, but
I didn't even remember he was in Red Dawn. But
yeah.
I like his character in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, at the very end.
Okay.
That's
funny. Anyway,
it's very well done.
Very good. All right.
So we talked about movies. We talked about documentaries. We talked about how much I'm happy to see you this evening
I'm always happy
and
to
our
see you,
guest.
buddy.
So let's get into it.
Let's do
talk
it.
some
Let's
art.
talk some art.
This is an art podcast. What
It
are you
is.
talking about? Yeah.
Well, we were talking about art.
Oh,
Movies is
that's
art.
true. Yeah.
So
There you go.
anyway, not Dick
All right.
Cheney. Dick Cheney's not art.
We talked politics. All right. Our guest is starting to get a little sleepy because he's been working his behind off the last like couple months.
I know. He's
So
busy beaver.
before we get into this, thank you for joining us. Remember, you can always find out what we're up to via our social media on Instagram at Tenant Podcast, our Tenant Podcast Facebook page, and then, of course, our website, tenantpodcast.com. And I keep forgetting to mention, but we are now on the YouTube platform. Wes, how can people find us there?
I think if you just put Tenant Podcast in the YouTube, it might bring you to it. Although I don't know. So that's a good question, but I don't know if let me see if it's got a special handle.
Anyway, no matter what, if you can't find us on YouTube, find us on your favorite platform and please consider to hit the subscribe button. We always appreciate that and share it with your friends and family. All right. We have a great guest for you this week. This is a gentleman that we've interacted with over the years, but never had the opportunity to really sit down and delve into his art practice and all that he brings to the community. You can follow him on Instagram at Cal Duran, and you can check out his work on his website, artbycal.com. Cal Duran, it's good to see your face.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you already expressed that you've been working pretty hard. You had to take down an installation yesterday. So we appreciate that you were willing to spend some time with us this evening because it's another big art week here in Denver. We have First Friday going on and more Day of the Dead celebrations, which you have altars that you have participated in or installed in various places, and we'll definitely talk about that. But before we get into it, I want you to take a moment and tell our listeners what kind of work that you do. Obviously, if you go to Cal's website, you can see the variety of things, but he has his hands on a lot of different things. So I would like you to talk about what you do as an artist and the mediums that you work with.
Yeah, thank you. Of course, I consider myself a multimedia folk artist. So I identify as a woven human. I call myself woven because I have a lot of different lineages and cultures inside my blood. And my mom was adopted, and my father was never really in the picture, in and out of jail. And we didn't really grow up with this set cultural presence or background. But I was always that curious little boy in my grandma's rock garden and playing with the mud and seeing all these images and faces and just really curious about the earth and where I came from, I think I was the darkest person in my family and just really wondering like where I came from culturally. And so really I found that art was my way to really connect with my lineage and really see how all of my different cultures kind of weave in and out and run parallel. You look at a lot of indigenous cultures and they all have similarities, with the art, the dance, the symbols, the food, so for me, art was my way to really connect in that way. So a lot of my art is made from the earth. I work with clay a lot, and I believe clay holds all of the elements. It is earth, and then it needs air, and then you need water, and you need fire. And clay is one of the oldest mediums on the planet. So when we're working with clay, I believe the clay holds all the memories of the imagination, the people before us. So I work with clay a lot and just really kind of obsessed or intrigued with faces. So I make a lot of faces and totems and just really, I never draw anything out. I just really let the clay guide my way. And with clay, you really can't have expectations. So for me, it just comes out and whatever happens, happens. I'm a really big fan of fiber. So I weave these weavings called Ojo de Dios, God's eyes. from the Wicarica tribe in Mexico. My grandma actually taught me those, my adoptive grandmother. And that's the really beauty about art is, before technology, before phones, the art traveled and told stories, and the art travels through generations. So, and it changes and transforms. So the Ojo de Dios, for me, I go into a meditative state and I call them portals because they say when you do something about 300 times or more, you go into a meditative state. And with the weaving, you just keep going and going. And there's a remembrance of weaving. And they say weavers are the timekeepers. And it's just really that ancestral chords that we're all really connected, in a woven tapestry of so many different cultures, lineages, and traditions.
I love that idea of, what you spelled out with the philosophy behind the clay. And that makes total sense, right?
Yeah.
Because,
Mm-hmm.
at some point we go back to the earth. So if we're from the earth, we go back to the earth. Why wouldn't it hold all those memories, all that DNA, right? Like
Yeah.
that's that's us, as people.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about your cultural background. Like you talked about being a woven person. So, and that could
Mm-hmm.
be said with a lot of people, right? Because a lot
Yep.
of us have different blood from different cultures or what have you. Talk a little bit
Mm-hmm.
about yourself.
Yeah. I mean, my mom, so we later found out through our DNA that, I mean, my mom, she's Native and then South Asian and Portuguese. And then my father is Chicano, about fourth generation Mexican, American. Um, and yeah, different one, I have a totally widespread of different lineages. So yeah, and when I realized that we're not so different than we think, when you talked about the earth, is we all go back to the earth. We all die too. We're all on the same universal journey of life and death. And I believe everybody's had ancestors that have honored the earth,
Mm-hmm.
that have honored the land, the waters, the air, that had really great reciprocity with the earth. And that right now is really a time when we need to come back to it. I think art is powerful, and artists are the change makers, the bridge builders, right now, and that the imagination is in everybody and it's for everybody. And there's no judgment in the imagination. We're all able to access this. So for me, I'm always about that connection between each other. And I'm an artist, but also an educator. Been an educator for the last 15 years, all ages. I was working a lot with kids, refugees, and kids of color at a place called Dava. I was there for about 8 years in Aurora, and just recently kind of just ventured out on my own and decided to just really give my art, my love and my heart and passion, and also going to different communities to teach where I'm not just stuck in one, and really just spreading the knowledge of what I've learned to others.
So, kind of going back to the multicultural piece, was there, when you were first starting out in art, was there a culture that you kind of glommed on first, and
Mm.
then how was your transition to whatever came later, and what was it?
That's a good question. I guess I was always fascinated by the Mexican culture, but also I remember my grandma took me to that movie, The Little Princess, when
Mm-hmm.
I was little, and I learned a lot about India, where some of my ancestors are from. And so, yeah, I think it was seeing how those two cultures ran parallel with each other, as far as color and music and dance and the vibrancy of it all. And I was always obsessed with Frida Kahlo and like that, but also love the Southwest and where we're from too. Our peoples are also from Colorado and New Mexico and indigenous, of these lands. So, yeah.
What indigenous tribes is your ancestry? connected to?
We don't really know.
Okay.
It didn't go that far deep with my mom as
Okay.
far as our DNA.
Sure.
But I mean, it's the tribes of New Mexico, like in Trinidad, and I
Okay.
mean, a lot of the Pueblo
Right.
tribe, the
Okay.
Pickery. But yeah, we don't know. And that's the thing. It's also, do we need to know? It's like
Right.
in our blood anyway, it's that knowledge, that's comes out when you're creating or when you're singing or so it's that great mystery.
Yeah. And did you identify particularly in any ancestry when you were growing up as a young kid? And was that problematic, or just being a multicultural youth? Did you have any issues with that, or was it you were pretty accepted?
I mean, yeah, especially, I think I had some challenges, yeah, for
Mm.
sure, with my mother's adoptive family. But yeah, I just was always kind of true to myself. And
Yeah.
yeah, so.
Cool. The reason I say that, I'll just kind of put reference to this. My first wife was native Dakota, and
Mm,
but she grew outside of the tribe and then moved back. And I grew up it was an open reservation, but on the res, and so she had a lot of conflict because she was native, but she wasn't. She didn't grow up in that community, so she was kind of ostracized
yeah.
from the community a little bit, and then the white community didn't really. So she felt really isolated from any group, and hightailed it out of South Dakota and got to California and Arizona. And once she got to like Arizona, it was a totally different experience for her. Very accepted. Nobody judged her. So it was kind of interesting. But I was just wondering if you had
Yeah.
some kind of the same experience.
Yeah, and definitely now, even in my adult life, there's those challenges of, are we pure blood enough? Are
Right.
like there's always that stigma or not learning how to speak Spanish, the assimilation our family had to go through. And
Right.
so, yeah, there's always those gatekeepers and those,
Yeah. Yeah. I was
those
just
ones
curious. Yeah.
yeah. And it's even like that within our own communities, it's sometimes the hardest. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that when people like kind of push back against, like if they're saying that you're not authentic enough? And I know you've experienced some of that kind of
Yeah.
pushback from people. How do you negotiate those waters?
I believe everybody, has a right to, be who they are within themselves, though I have, Renee Fajardo is one of my teachers and aunties, soul family. But she always tells me, our ancestors are in our blood. We have our own lineage. We have our own palabra. And that's really only who we have to answer to. And, the whole blood quantums of that is like in its own way a separation tactic by the government and all of that stuff as well. It's like if we just really, if it comes from the heart, and it comes from a good place within you, then what's the problem?
Right.
It becomes all these judgments, and it's just, the hierarchy and the colonialism and patriarchy. It feeds into our own communities, and then that projects out, and then we're separating our own people. And so I've just a firm believer of, also standing up and being like, no, because there's a lot of, the next generation, the youth are mixed or woven or,
Right.
people. And everybody has a right to access where they come from and remember those roots of who they are. So I always stand up to it. Um, and that might always not be the best approach or, but I believe if we don't stand up, it just keeps happening. And,
Right.
there's a lot of elders that spread that, and then it spreads to their students, and then it spreads and spreads until we actually, say, no, this needs to stop happening.
Right. Right.
So you try to dispel that, especially with the fact that you work with youth and that sort of thing, kind of teach like what the philosophy that you know, have learned from other people and that you've
Mhm.
kind of embraced yourself. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, there's enough self-doubt for ourselves that we don't need it from other people. And
Right.
in the art world is really, it's hard to navigate. And I've been in the art world since I was like 17 here in Colorado, and it's been a journey. So
Now, did you grow up in an artistic family?
um not really. I mean, my sister's kind of where I have two older sisters. But yeah, I just kind of knew from a young age that art was what I wanted to do. Um, and it was kind of how I communicated to the other side, to my ancestors. So, I always was making art in elementary school, middle school, high school. I grew up in Thornton, Colorado. And I went to Thornton High School, and I had an amazing art teacher. Her name was is Lisa Rogers. And I just would always be in the pottery room creating. I would ditch class and spend my time in there. I would go to the library. And I almost graduated. It was my 12th grade year, and 2 months before my graduation, they kicked me out because I wouldn't take a gym class. And I just wasn't into PE. I didn't like it. I was like, I don't know, like, why I have to take it. I was stubborn, but my art was winning awards. I was part of this organization called Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. And I was winning like best in state, and my stuff got sent to New York for their national competition at the Guggenheim. And I just knew this is what I wanted to do. So, and then I became the youngest member at a gallery called the Pirate Art Gallery, which I love the Pirate. They're still around, but I really miss up in the north side by the Bug Theater and the Zip and the Edge Gallery, all of those. Yeah, that's where I really learned from a lot of elders. I had a beautiful teacher named Marie Evie B. Gibbons. She passed away right before the pandemic, but she was an amazing person and really taught me how to paint sculptures, cold finishing techniques, and storytelling. So yeah, just really learning from, I didn't go to art school, but I decided to learn from community members and leaders and other artists and elders in the community, and just kept making art. Like I would just always have a little studio. My art teacher gave me a kiln when I left high school. Just like, take this.
Wow.
And I just always had a studio and kept making and making and showing just because I had to. It was how I survived. It was how I regulated my emotions and all of that stuff.
And art school not being part of the equation, would you have chosen that path if you could have, or are you content in that you chose your own path? And because art schools can sometimes like kind of quash some creativity, and speaking with other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, I mean, I was shopping around, to go to art school, and it was just so expensive. We couldn't afford it. And it was really, yeah, kind of squashing. It was like, we were just really about like, how are you going to make money at this? How are you going to, do this? And it was like, I wasn't really making art to make money, and I still really don't. I mean, yeah, it supports me now, but my really initiative when I make art is for me. And it's my expression, my voice without words, how I access, spirit and all of that. So, yeah, I wouldn't have changed a thing. I'm really glad and grateful of um, what I've built within my own creative field.
Nice.
I love that
Yeah.
because you definitely have your own voice and you can tell, I mean, looking at the work and then, the brief interaction that I've had with you,
Hmm.
it just feels authentic,
Hmm. Thank you.
and your style and what you do is definitely like you. Like I could walk into a gallery, I feel like, and see a piece that you have there and go, I bet that's Cal Duran's without looking at a
Hmm.
tag or anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, thank you for that.
Have you embraced the whole kind of folk art moniker as far as like it's silly that we have to have these different categories and all this, but right. But everybody gets kind of, stuck in a category at one point or another. Do you like that it's considered folk art? Have you embraced that whole thing?
Yeah, I think when I was younger, folk art always kind of got a bad rap. It wasn't, contemporary enough to be, in some galleries, or, it wasn't this or that. Like, I don't know, but really seeing and traveling to different places and seeing the folk art, and my favorite museum in the whole world is the International Folk Art in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I got to teach there, and I got to teach about 35 teachers all from all over New Mexico, and really showing them my process. And it was really kind of a dream come true. And I think that's when I really started embracing folk art. We used to go there when we were little, and it was like a full circle moment. But I love, folk art as it's from the heart. It's from, oh, it's not so pristine. It's not, it has the raw edges. It just has spirit, and you could see it and you could feel it. And so, yeah, I'm really proud to call myself a folk artist, and all the multi, media folk art has as well. And the visceral part of it too, with paper mache, or, and like, it's just really beautiful. And I think that's kind of our connective thread through internationally, is the art of folk art. So,
yeah. And it's really the heartbeat of the culture. I think it really represents culture more so than, let's say, fine art.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Have you always been, I know that you're a very spiritual person. Have you always been very spiritual, or was that an evolution to kind of find your way in addition to finding your way in the art world? Has that been a journey in itself, or have you always felt connected to spirit?
I think there's always been a connection to something, spirits, the spirit, the universe, but it's definitely grown. I definitely was wilder when I was young, and kind of navigating that whole, lineage within me, and addiction, and within my own family systems, and, being in my 20s and navigating the world, but still always making time for art and making sure that I was connected. But I think, yeah, in my like later 20s, because I'd always put my art out there. And I have a beautiful teacher and elder and friend. Her name's Danette Montoya. And she just asked, she had a big installation at the Denver Art Museum. And it was to really activate the fourth floor, the Mesoamerican collection, and create 4 big altars. And she needed an assistant. And I had never really met her. And she just wrote to me on a whim. And that's where I really think it sparked more of really that spiritual connection. So really spending time with all those Mesoamerican pieces that are stolen. Colorado, the art museum, has the largest Mesoamerican collection that's been stolen. And whenever I look at those artifacts, I just feel the spirit in them. I believe our ancestors made this art, not only art, but it was meant to be in ceremony. It was meant to hold the water. It was meant to hold the fire. It was meant to be around somebody. So when you go into these collections and see them locked up, you almost feel this presence, of them wanting out. They want the smoke. They want to be alive. But we really got to activate that whole space. And then we really started studying curanderismo, healing art of Mexico and of our ancestors, and traveling to Peru and traveling to Guatemala and Mexico. And so that just kind of catapulted me to learn from different people and just really be on a discovery of the healing lineage of my people.
It's interesting because, I've been to that floor as well, but I never thought of it in the terms that you're saying, that these pieces want to be filled with water, want to create smoke, want to be alive in essence, right? And now they're locked up in a museum. I never made that connection before. So thank you for that. And it's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think, is there a benefit that you have this huge collection for the people? I mean, is there a positive side, or do you think all that stuff should be returned to the areas where they were originally stolen?
I think all this stuff should be returned, but I think also, I mean, it's good for generations to see that art, and to really help me, to see it too,
Right.
to be inspired and have a grounding point, a remembrance within the pieces. I always think sometimes museums, that's where art goes to die.
Right.
It's like it sits in a collection. It sits in a collection, and then the collection, is anybody ever going to see it? Or
Right.
is it, is it going to have one breath and then gone? Or it has to be so preserved that, it's interesting with institutions, but I see the pros and I see the cons.
Sure. And that's how I feel about private collections. Like somebody will spend just a god amount of money and nobody will ever see it again. It just goes into some safe somewhere. Is there anybody else telling that story that you just told, that these pieces actually have like a living element to them and want to be a vessel of water, want to be a vessel of smoke? Is anybody telling that? Because I've never heard that before.
There is a book, it's Yo Soy La Chicana by Gloria Andula, I think. But she talks about pieces going to the museum and dying.
Okay.
But I mean, for me, I just feel, that's just what I get a sense of when I see those collections.
Yeah, I love it. I love that. I love that description. So, and I'm not giving it due justice the way you did. So, but yeah.
This woman that you worked with, how long ago was that at the Denver Art Museum?
It was 10 years ago, almost. Yeah, so almost 10 years ago. And we still have pieces that we've created together and that I still travel with. And get the Colorado History Museum, I have a giant paper mache heart that me and her made, and that's hanging up in the altar. So that's a really thing about art too, is that I like traveling with it. I want it to be alive. I don't want it just sitting, I could travel with these pieces year after year, or fix them up, refresh them, or give them new life. And then they could travel and be seen and be part of community, feel the presence and of multiple, like fill the air, so I have multiple pieces that I rotate and keep using, and
And you said that she kind of, well, at least it felt like it was kind of this, she reached out to you kind of randomly, but she must have known about you or heard about you or seen your work somewhere.
For sure. Yeah. I think it was through maybe social media or an article or maybe something. But yeah, she reached out and just felt this soul connection. And she lives in New York now, and wanting me to come out there. But I don't know. I love Colorado, and I love the roots here. And I think there's more work that needs to be done here. So.
Yeah. And, you're busy all the time between, being an art educator, doing your own work, and the multitude of things that, you have your hands in. It's hard to like pick up and want to go somewhere else. Right.
Yeah.
So obviously she's been a mentor. Who have been some of your other mentors? You talked about your art teacher in high school, but I know you've mentioned other people in print. Talk about some of those other people.
Yeah, I think I mentioned too Marie Gibbons. She was a big influence in my art, my clay work. Definitely some people at the Pirate. Phil Bender. I don't know if you know Phil Bender. That guy's really fun and just really kind of just like supported me when I was younger. And his artwork has always baffled me and made me smile. Who else? Renee Fajardo, Dr. Renee. MSU Chicana Studies doctor for the Journey Through Our Heritage program. She really took me under her wing about maybe 6 years ago, when I was getting some backlash for not being authentic or enough, or, I think we had done an altar and a community member stole from the altar because they didn't think it was authentic enough. And Renee really just had my back and really just kind of is the most kind-hearted and, real person I know. And she's a little wacky and a little spacey. It's just like kind of like my aunties and tias and family. But she's strong and she stands up for what she believes and honors who she is. And I love her for it. So, and she really teaches me a lot about even curanderismo, and her learning from Rita Wallace de Flores was her teacher. And I really got to be in a really honorable space that I was Rita's last student. And I remember Rita Wallace from Chalk Gallery, Chicano Humanities for the Art Council. And I'm also a board member on there to this day. But I remember Rita from there and from the Pirate, but we didn't really cross paths in that timeline. So I really got to visit her in her last years, these last 4 years. And she had dementia and she almost passed away a few times, but we really got to embrace her. And I would go over there every week and we would weave. We would weave the Ojo de Dios. And I really saw that, art has that ability, even when, we get older and our elders, sometimes we forget about them, but we really need to come back to that center of imagination because she remembered, she remembered how to weave them and the joy that just it awakened her. And I would show her how to crochet again. And we really got to honor her while she was still alive. So I think it was 3 years ago, we honored her at the Colorado History Museum for the Corn Mothers Project, Renee's project, honoring all these women nationally that do amazing work with the land and art and people and communities. But Rita's collection is, there's 120 pieces at the History of Colorado. And we got to take some of those pieces out and build an altar for Rita while she was still alive. So it was really amazing. And she just passed away this April. And we got to honor her again at her funeral. And then once again at the Colorado History for her altar. Yeah.
That's really lovely. I'm glad that you've spent so much time with it. Renee would tell me that, you would go over there and play music for her and, sit with her and make art. And I think that's really spectacular. She was a wonderful, wonderful woman. Anybody else that you want to mention as far as mentor?
I mean, there's so many. I mean, also being a teacher, I think, the students are mentors too. And you learn so much from students. And wow, like just seeing how people access the imagination and that you would never do it that way, but they did it that way and they made it work. And so definitely students and community are always my mentors. And I think the greatest gift is having a student like do better than you, And I also have my flute teacher, John Romero. He's been a great mentor, and amazing musician, Colorado staple, inducted in the Chicano Hall of Fame, John Romero. But yeah, he's been a good mentor in my life too. I have mentors in Guatemala. Her name's Nana Shuni. We're going to go spend a month out there. She just came and saw us for a month here. So yeah, learning, different pockets of knowledge everywhere, I think is essential.
And just being open.
Yeah, being open and that we're never, we never stop learning and that we learn from each other. And, I don't have all the answers and I never will, but, we keep growing and having that ability to keep growing. So, yeah.
I love that. And I love how you talked about, learning from your students because when you teach something, right, like it makes you stop and think about how you do things and why you do things. And sometimes in that process of explaining, you kind of have this, epiphany as well. In addition to just like you said, and this is why we love doing this podcast, talking about, people's process and what was the seed to do like a particular body of work? Like what was the catalyst, and seeing young minds that aren't inhibited in any way, right? That are still free, that they're not overburdened with, the world quite yet. I mean, that's always got to be refreshing, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think this generation needs to be more tactile, it needs to find, those safe spaces beyond technology, beyond, really even clay and sculpting. Why I work in the 3D is that full body. It's the full body experience. It all goes in one, the imagination, and then you're really harnessing your body and creating with your hands and movement, and it all goes hand in hand, I think, and our next generation really needs that. And I think we're losing it in some capacity. I've kind of, think I'm gonna next year retire really from going to schools because the school system is really, it's a hard road, and going to different schools and seeing where all these gaps are, and it's a crazy time to be a teacher in America right now or anywhere. It's having responsibility for other people's children should be paid more than it
Yeah,
is. It's a
Absolutely.
lot of pressure, and I don't think people realize that. And especially, with the violence and all of that. And so I've been really, um, just really standing in my own art and where I want to go and how I want to do it. And also saying no, to a lot of things that don't feel right and being okay with that, especially, as educators, we need to, trust our intuitions. And, it's hard to like be like, oh, well, the kids are going to miss me, or, it's like, but we also have to look out for ourselves um, and what's going to best serve the next generation. So.
right.
Yeah. I mean, that's a hard position to be in because it's so important right now. Like you said, like you touched on that, you know, teachers aren't recognized for how important they are in our society. And art is one of those things that is desperately needed still because we've lost I don't think critical thinking, and that's what art does, right? It
Mhm.
works your brain. Gives you a brain workout because you're troubleshooting on the
Yeah.
fly. And that's one of the beautiful things that art teaches us. So when they're cutting art classes or they're not bringing in people to, from the outside to do a workshop or what have you, they're just hurting the kids. And God, we desperately need that right now as far as, but I also see how you are like, all right, this is a system that I don't know if I should participate in or not. And I have a direction that I'm trying to go. So it's,
Mhm.
that's a difficult position to be in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I still will like contract and go, different places. I just think because I teach at the Denver Art Museum. I teach at the Bicentennial Art Center in Aurora. It's a clay studio. And so mostly working with adults, but I will, go, and I taught kids up in Breckenridge. We went to 4 different schools and taught 3 different classes at 4 different schools. And so like that, it's just, I can't imagine just working at a school full time. And just, I think as artists, sometimes we have to be a little selfish with our craft, and that, our art needs our time. It needs our love. It needs our, attention. And I think a lot of times as art teachers, we just have to put that on the back burner. And that's not always fair. Or they just want art, an art class for 30 minutes. And it's like, that's not fair,
Right.
for the kids or us. So, yeah.
You can't do anything in 30 minutes, right? By the
No, and
time
that's
you,
the thing about, yeah, a lot of the after school programs, it's like, yeah, you have 45, 30 minutes, and it's like, okay, like, so it's, yeah, just a lot of navigation in these times for art teachers and budgeting and all of that, yeah, can be really consuming.
to get to where you're at now as an artist, when you left high school and you knew that you wanted to continue to be a full-time artist, that this is what you were going to do with your life, how did you make that art life go? How did you facilitate that? Obviously, the art education was part of it, but what kind of things did you do?
Well, like I wasn't always a full-time artist. So I definitely waited tables, to like subsidize, and that really helped. Um, but I would just, like, as far as what do you mean? Like,
Yeah, because I feel like you were really smart. Like you always have had a lot of irons in the fire. So I was just curious, like what your trajectory has been to get to the point that you are now, where you're a recognized name, where you're asked to
mm,
do installations and all the other things that you do.
yeah, I think, just, yeah, being a member at the Pirate, I think I was a member there for 3 or 4 years. So I would always have a solo show in their back space. And I would have that every year. So that really like fueled me to make an art, keep making art when you have a solo show every year. And then I became a member, I think it was at Core Art Space. And I think they just recently moved as well. Are they in 40 West now too?
Are they?
Core?
I think they are.
Yeah, I think Core is now too. So I was a member there. So I would always like be part of galleries, the co-ops, to really stay connected. And then you'd have the member shows and you would have all that. And then also show, at coffee shops, or I was always just putting my art out there, kind of wherever, and just really staying in tune with the community and the Santa Fe Art District, Chalk Gallery. Um, so really making sure that I was I guess, in the scene, and showing and connecting. I mean, there was like a year that I didn't do anything as well, so I had a lapse and processing and, seeing. I think there was an era where I was like, everything's white, paint everything white. Like spray painted all my sculptures white, and we all go through those phases, and so yeah, just really like connecting with the community and in that way. And so that was kind of just how you build, I think, how I built it where I am now, and just still building that community, and being supporting of others, being supporting of other artists, and knowing that it's not a competition, really that we could all have the same niche, and still collaborate, not really, that we're stealing from each other. And um so yeah, I think just supporting each other is really and collaboration, um I think is really big for me now. Is how do we share, our minds together and kind of leave our ego aside, and just really collaborate, and then that spreads, and it's like seeds, so yeah.
And I think the other thing that you did it's amazingly well is finding mentors, because I think
Mm.
people underestimate the power of having a mentor, somebody that can guide you. And you had multiple. I mean, so I think that's smart and probably contributed to it too.
Yeah, for sure.
During that time, were you, did you ever feel like dejected? Did you face any challenges that kind of stopped you in your tracks? Um, and if so, how did you deal with that? You did say that like for 1 year, you didn't really do anything. Was that one of those years where you just kind of rebooted yourself?
Yeah, yeah. I was like talking to a fellow artist actually yesterday, and we were talking about that. That sometimes, when you're going, you're going, you're going, you're going, is that we don't always as artists have time to process. or step away. Like, as artists, we step away from the piece and really look what's going on. It's like sometimes you have to step away and see what you're doing in the whole grand scheme of things, and to really process and to really make time and space for new ideas. But yeah, I mean, for the art world, it's a tricky spot, working with institutions and galleries, and, really advocating for yourself as an artist. I think that really took me some time to build those legs, of saying, hey, I'm not just going to accept $200 or $500 or, to do this huge installation, or, just having my art seen isn't enough for me anymore. It's not going to pay the bills, and so I think really advocating for myself has been a journey. And I think for a lot of artists that we don't always talk about is it's a journey. And how do we speak up more that artists deserve more? And, a lot of times, my thing is, if I don't get any email, someone contacts me. And if there is like no reciprocity or anything in the email, I'll be like, okay, is there any reciprocity? I'll be like, oh, we didn't think of that. I'm like, it needs to be in the first email. It really does. Like if you want, an artist to do something for free, say it in the email, but don't like go and just be like, oh yeah, then, because artists have time too, and it should be paid, at least acknowledge. So I've been big on saying no, or being like, okay, you really need to, I think it was the governor's mansion, and they did the whole Latin, fest, Hispanic Heritage Month, and got all these artists. And one year they asked me a day before the event, like, yeah, it's really good, exposure. And I'm like, okay, is this paid? Like, actually, the governor does not have the funds to pay any artists. And I'm like, well, I'm not doing it. And also, he should get some funds to pay the artists for showing for 5 hours at his event, setting up. And why have an event to support, people of color and not even pay them?
Right.
And no response. And being like, okay, I'm going to say no to that. Like, it's not a big deal for me. I'm not really been, a twist my panties kind of person on governors or, elected. Like, I don't really care. I don't.
Right.
Like,
right.
I'm not a big what. Like, I need the photo with the mayor. Like, I'm just, but I get it. Like, people want to do it for exposure, but also we need to set a bar high, for artists. Like, if we keep just, getting the scraps, then that's all, that they're going to expect from us. So I've really been a firm believer on paying artists on time and knowing our worth. So
yeah. That reminds me of an interview we did, Todd, where I can't remember who it was. And they said, exposure is great, but you also die of exposure. Remember that?
Right.
Yeah.
I forget who said that too, but that was a great line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did it take you a while to reach that point though, Cal? Or did you always kind of have that attitude like, hey, I need to get...
It took me a while. And Dr. Renee really was a big influence on that, and other elders. I have another elder. Her name's Cecilia Apodaca. She was in the Chicano movement. I was working at Village Inn up in the north side for a long time and met her there, and she's an amazing artist. But also, yeah, like we have to show people that, that we're worth it. And if we don't, it's just going to keep happening. So.
Yeah. Words of advice from Cal Duran, ladies and gents. Stand your ground, get paid for what you do.
Yeah.
And, everybody takes those jobs here and there to, pro bono or what have you, but don't make it a habit. Like, get paid for what you do, right?
Yeah, and choose what, if people acknowledge me. I mean, people could at least buy someone a meal, know? Like, I could always tell when I work at institutions, like, oh, let's feed you, or, can I at least buy you a sandwich, or, acknowledge you, or how about a little gas money? I mean, can't afford, to pay you this, but how about some gas money? Or, you really can tell when people see you not as a commodity, but see you as something that's really, beneficial for them, and that you're acknowledged, because artists are in the trenches. They need us more than we need them, honestly. Like,
Absolutely. It's so true. Like, art is what pushes us forward, and you kind of touched on that at the beginning of this interview. We're the keepers of the flame, and we're the ones that, push our society and culture forward. We ask the hard questions, right? And it benefits everybody. And art is all around us. Like, people take it for granted, but everything from, we've said it before, our friend Bob Ragland. Did you ever know Bob? Did you ever
yes.
meet Bob?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
met him I didn't know him like full on, but I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah. And he definitely was all about like getting paid and interested in
Mhm.
on how artists made their money. But he's like, you know, art isn't necessarily this precious thing. And everything from, the house or the building that you're in was, that you work in was made by an artist or designed by an artist, right?
Oh yeah.
That pamphlet that you're picking up, for a service or for something fun, right? That was designed by an artist. And so he always had this, very broad view of what art was and, what it means and how important it is, because literally it's all around us all the time, but we take it for
Mhm.
granted.
Yeah, someone had to have a vision for what we're in, this home I'm in, or the institutions we go to, or the buildings, or the grocery store. Like, you see everybody, someone had a vision for it. And
Right.
also, you think about that spiritually too, is that there's been ancestors and spirit guides in these spaces as well, that we need to acknowledgement, and that needs acknowledgement, and that we just need to acknowledge more energetically too, of the spaces and people before us. So
I mentioned in that previous question about challenges that you faced. Every artist deals with rejection on
Mhm.
some level, right? It's just part of the landscape. How do you deal with it when it occurs in your world?
Yeah, I'm always a big fan of what will be for me will be for me. Um, and I think rejection is spirit looking out for me.
Mm.
It's not always, it might have not been in my alignment and what I needed to do at that time. I had a lot of rejections this year with some proposals, and I think it really looked out for me, because then we got other ones that were in alignment, and then we would have been too busy for this other project if we did get it. And and also sometimes rejection needs to leave open spaces for other artists. I never want to be one of those artists that is like, I need to do this every year, and I need to be with this organization every year because I've built it and I've done it. It's like, no, like, we need to leave room and breath for others to see their vision, and that, there's spaces and time in each of our journeys to be where we need to be at that time. And I think, as artists, we need to give that space for other artists too. So I see rejection as just other open doors. No, maybe I didn't always see that way when I was younger. But I always kept going, I always kept making, because it was really not about where it needed to go. It was just creating it first and seeing where it ended up. And it really, I think the art chooses where it wants to go.
One of your larger installations is you did for Meow Wolf.
Mm-hmm.
Um, was that one at the time, and that was back in 2020, 2021?
2020, yeah, during the pandemic.
Okay. Was that your first big installation, would you say?
At that capacity, yeah, like a permanent installation, yeah. And I remember when Meow first came in like 2018, and they came to really meet with artists, and I remember going to each and every one of their meetings and all of that. And yeah, I was originally gonna do the installation, the proposal myself, but another artist, his name's David Ocelot Garcia, wanted to team up and collaborate. So we did. And It was almost a 2-year proposal process. And over 1,000 artists applied. And it was really one rough proposal, and then you got in, and then they give you specs for a room, and then you would do that, a mock-up, and then you didn't really know if you got it. So they only picked 21 artists to do permanent rooms in Colorado, artists to do permanent rooms and installations.
And that installation still exists to this day, right? They haven't changed any of that out.
Yeah. So it was really, whenever I go into that room, it's a blur. I think that was one of the most challenging times to be an artist, really, for me at least, because we didn't get to like connect with any other artists because it was the pandemic. Right. And it was a live construction site. They were just building this whole thing. And it was a really fast go around. I think our proposal got accepted in like October, and then they wanted us to install in December. And so, yeah, it was a big, I don't remember if it was 2020 or 2021. I think it was 2021. All I know is that we still had to wear masks, and the place was just, like a COVID swamping ground. And it really was. And it was just like, we had to wear the full PPE, like the construction hat, the mask, the vest, in the middle of winter. And, I remember we were on the 5th floor and carrying up these huge cement bags up the stairs and buckets of water. And making all these, big masks. So the room was really, for me at least, was to honor the indigenous animals and tribes of these lands of Turtle Island and South America, North America, that were all connected. So we made 52 ceramic heads. So we split that in half, and we each made about 23 each. And they're protruding out the wall. And then we cemented a bunch of the walls. We cut out in foam and then cemented them to look like corn stalks, and just really a whole experience. And it taught me a lot of collaboration, and it was about a 7-month installation.
Wow.
From start to finish. So I'm proud of it, but it was one of those things that you go back and look at and you're like, where did that even come from? How did that even happen?
Because I think when Wes and I met you and David, you had a studio down over by the stadium in the LCAC, I think, right?
Oh yeah, that was his studio. Adriana Barca used to own it. I think they just sold it. And that building was really, in all honesty, really, like, it was like an old bean factory, and there was no heat. The toilet would always freeze. It's like smelled really horrible in there. It was just like, it was just really weird. It was honestly a really crazy experience, but we made it work. And and I have my studio at Recreative Denver on 7th and Santa Fe. I've been there 10 years. It's a little ceramic studio. I share it with an amazing artist. Her name's Kelly Eigenberger. And I just really love that it's about a 250, 300 square foot studio, but we have 2 kilns, and that's where I fired all the pieces for Meow Wolf and would have to bring them over. But it was an interesting experience as an artist. But that was one of my biggest installations, I guess, I've done.
And that process sounds like it was really arduous. And obviously, you know, talking about being in that studio, it sounds like you were suffering for your art as well, right?
Yeah, suffering for the art. And it was really, in the grand scheme of things, Meow Wolf, they always said they would support artists. And that was another time where I had to speak up. And with the reciprocity, and at first it was not, supporting artists. So, and I think a lot of artists felt that way, but I wrote a letter and was like, you really need to stand up for what you talk about. And So there's always those moments of when we don't stand up and we just leave, there's not opportunities for them to learn and grow and step up and really pay artists what they deserve.
And I'd heard from some other artists that I've interacted with that a lot of artists didn't understand what really, not only just like the process, but also because it was a lot for a lot of them, the first time that they've done anything on this kind of scale, that a lot of them actually kind of lost money on the whole deal, that they really didn't, you would think that you were making a bunch of money, but that wasn't the case in everybody's scenario, just because they didn't anticipate certain things. Because, and if I remember correctly, it was really on the construction end of things, because a lot of people thought that there were certain things that they were gonna provide the artists, and actually it fell on the shoulders of the artists. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, it was a whole live construction site. Like in our room, we had like the walls weren't even done yet when we were supposed to set up. So that took time. And then literally like a whole air compressor was in the middle of our room. And the air compressor housed all the other air compressor in the whole building. So there was this noise. And sometimes I dream about it. But this like noise the whole time. Like we were creating the room, and we would have to work around. Imagine just working around a whole live construction site, and there's no windows in there. There's no opportunities to talk to any other artists, or really any opportunities, to like talk about the art, because it's so top secret too. It's like, so it was really a bizarre time to be an artist, because usually, I love that collaboration and talking and, seeing and being excited, where it was just really kind of this private, area of where you had to create in this chaos. So,
And to me, I would think that to get in that kind of headspace to create and to do this installation, that would be difficult, because, like you said, you're walking into a construction zone. It's hard for me to wrap my head when I'm looking at pictures, and I have some pictures pulled up of the installation. It's hard for me to kind of wrap my head of what that process must have been like to like fulfill this vision that you guys had.
Yeah, you just had to really, see it forward and just keep creating. As an artist, I say for me with installations, like you have to make the ingredients. So you make all your ingredients. And then for me, it's really where the magic happens is in the installation. And I never have a concept like going in, like a big concept of, like I see an initial vision, but then I know it's going to change because the art's going to tell me where it wants to go and what it wants to do. So really making, all of your ingredients, bringing them, and then seeing what happens, and not having that expectation. It has to be this vision. And, I think that's you're collaborating with yourself in that way, I think, is giving yourself space. And I tell students that, and that's the biggest thing with kids and all generations, really, is we have one idea and it needs to look just like that idea. And if it doesn't, we crumble. And I had to learn that really early, is that why does it have to be just like it? Why does it have to look just like it? Because if it's, it doesn't look just like your vision when you're going to create it, so you have to give yourself that space, I think, as artists to let the art tell you what it wants to do.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being open to, maybe something not working out the way you anticipated, right? And sometimes that's the catalyst for something even better. Kind of like what you mentioned before, like letting things, the universe or the spirit, tell you what needs to happen, right?
Yeah.
And that's just being in tune with your art, being authentic and being in tune with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for people listening, if you happen to be live in the Denver metro area, if you've already experienced Meow Wolf, or if you've yet to experience Meow Wolf, or you're traveling through, you can still see this installation. It's called Earth Spirits of the Subconscious Mind, and that's on the 5th floor.
Yeah, the 5th floor. Yeah, and Meow Wolf has, it is a great experience when I go back in there, and I'm really grateful for, having that there and having our voice, as Indigenous artists in there. And I still sell some stickers there. And, I mean, I have a good relationship there. And, but yeah, I think, we all have, ways to grow as institutions and how we treat artists and situations. And, I think definitely in this time, a lot of institutions are being like, well, we don't have enough to pay artists and, this and that. Then cancel your events. Then don't have them. Then don't expect artists, that are struggling now, probably more than ever in the, this political climate. Um, then why do you have your events? Like scale it down. Don't do them this year. Or, same like during the COVID, like why did we have to do that during that time? It's like, let's go slow. It's always a fast, 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 fast when we really just need to let art breathe and let it guide our way.
Yeah.
I love that you spoke to that because, yeah, in this fast-paced society, and I do not work fast. I do
Yeah.
not like being pressed for time. I don't mind a deadline, but I want the amount of time, the right amount of time to do it, do a good job and do my due diligence, right? You are very prolific. Do you create every day?
There's some like today I didn't create anything. And sometimes, you have to. I try to like make something every day or, gather things or but no, I mean, I think I've done it for so long where I kind of know where to go and navigate it and, especially with installations is I know my ingredients, what I need, and I, have new ones, old ones, and so yeah, like sometimes I feel, I did about 8 different altars in a matter of like a month, and then I have to go take them all down. But I mean, I've been doing this for so long that I really see the reward, because for Dia de los Muertos, I've been building these community ofrendas for probably the last, yeah, like 10 years really strong. I mean, I used to do it at the Pirate for my own family and stuff. But you get to see like all the messages, to their loved ones. We've had like 3,000 messages on one altar, and seeing really the benefits of what these ofrendas and altars mean to people and for communities. So, and see how they transform year after year is, I still have a lot of my old pieces that I use, but I transform them and then they become different. So it's every year, it's like it grows and then you see and then you're building. And so the benefits for that are, rewarding is, I am getting older. I'm 37.
Oh, you're just a baby, Cal. Come on.
But I feel it in my body, you feel it. But yeah, I think it's just, yeah, this time of year is just really, let's say it's a busy season, but it's really the most profound season because it's really getting, to be really with community. And it's a lot to hold a lot of grief to. We, with all the messages, we hold a fire ceremony after and we read all the messages out loud and we bring those messages back to the sky, back to the spirit. But you really see the impact, and I think that's the same thing with installations. I've always been like, I want my installation to feel like you're going into another realm. There's stuff above, below, but it also feels like your spirit, That's how it was in Meow Wolf. We wanted it to be, that place is so chaotic where you just walk in the room and it feels like a breath. It feels like a cocoon. So yeah, it's just, yeah, really just seeing the benefits of your art that it needs to be alive, at least for me.
So talk about Day of the Dead, de los Muertos, because we have listeners in last count 142 different countries. And if you don't come from a part of the world where this is celebrated, and this is really relatively new, at least to Colorado, is it not?
Well, they say Rita Wallace de Flores, my elder, Renee always says, that she was really influential in bringing Dia de los Muertos to Colorado in the 1980s. Also with Bob Luna, there's a lot of other elders that were influential. And I think it was a little tiny gallery show at the Pirate back in the day. And then it just grew from there. But Dia de los Muertos is the Day of the Dead. I say it's a celebration of life and death as one, and original roots from Mexico. And it's really a celebration of our ancestors, of our loved ones, and all of the elements of the altar. The altar is an ofrenda, and ofrenda meaning offering. And it's really just honoring your loved one with pictures, with food that they loved. And each tradition, each Puebla in Mexico celebrates it different. And it's really, can be celebrated by anybody. So really Rita taught is that, we are on this universal journey of death. And, on the altar, everything means something. The tears of the altar, the flags, the papal picado representing the wind, the food representing the earth. We have candles representing the fire, and water, of course, to quench the thirst. And it's celebrated. There's so much you could say about Dia de los Muertos. I wish Renee was here because she could talk about it all day. But yeah, I mean, through colonization, it had deep Mexica roots of Aztec, of Minchayantli, the goddess of the dead, and they would pray over the bones. So it's just transitioned into this really big celebration of life and death. And it's beautiful. The colors, the spirit, the celebration, and if we pull our skin off this meat suit, that we're all these bones, and that it should be celebrated. I always think that life is just the beginning, and who knows, that death is just a whole nother journey that we all get to experience.
Mm-hmm. So you're not fearful of death then?
No, not at all.
Yeah, and in Western society, it's kind of taboo to talk about death, or at least, here in this country, right? Like it's the, the elephant in the room. We don't want to talk about, that thing. I love the celebration. And I do want to ask you about marigolds being utilized. What is the significance of that?
Oh, yes, marigolds. So marigolds, they say, are the scent of the dead. Mm. And it's really interesting when you smell a marigold, you could smell it. It's a remembrance. And so the marigold is spread, the petals all over the altar and even in a walkway. So it also calls your ancestors to come to the altar.
And you talked about the different levels of the altar. Talk about that, if you would.
Yeah, so there's all different kinds. You could do one tier and or you could do 3 tiers or 7 tiers, 12 tiers, that kind of, or you could do like a whole pyramid. It's really, I think when you build an altar, and if you've never built an altar, you should try just a photo of your loved one and see what happens. And that's the unique thing, is that your ancestors will show you the way, but you have to show up and do it.
Right.
That's the thing. You have to show up and listen. Our ancestors are, I believe, with us all the time. Spirits are all over. But if you don't take a moment to just have a sacred pause and listen, or just show up and bring a candle to a table and some, ingredients, flowers, nothing's going to happen. So, but when you have time and really take the time to create an ofrenda, an offering, an altar, it'll tell you how to do it. And there's no wrong or right way, I believe, at least, in creating an altar. I don't think spirit's up above judging, oh, wow, you didn't do 2 tiers or 3 tiers. you didn't go the left direction, or you didn't do this, or, it's not that way. For me, I don't think, we have a spirit judging us like that. It's, if it's from your heart, then why not?
Yeah.
Now, are there people out there that believe that there is a specific way that you should do it?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of people that believe that there's only one way to do an altar. I think there's something about traditions that I believe, definitely we hang on to these traditions of our elders. But there's some traditions that we shouldn't hang on to, and then we're in a new world. We're in a new field where, we have to weave a new paradigm of the traditions that are here that don't always serve, like, in some indigenous cultures, women can't play a drum, or you're not allowed to do this, or, queer, two-spirit, gay people aren't supposed to lead ceremony, or, there's some traditions that are gatekeeping, and that we live in a new world now. And then how do we really hold on to some traditions, but reweave them where it's accessible for everybody, just trying to find their way and be accepting and meeting people where they're at on their journey of, just wanting to remember where they come from.
I love that idea that like Rita started, like trying to be really inclusive. I think that's so important in today's society. And man, there's so many, like you said, gatekeepers that want to hold people out, I just, I love that. I love your philosophy on that.
I was always under the impression that Day of the Dead was on November 1st, but it's actually a multi-day celebration. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. So there's, and it always seems like sometimes it changes every year that I've noticed. There's like new traditions. But I was always told it was November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And November 1st was when the babies came out, all the lost babies that, have died, and they start coming out and leading the procession, and also the animals, the pets. And then that's really kind of where we start building the altar, the bones of the altar. And then on the 2nd is where we really build, the altar, adding the photos, adding the food that our loved ones ate, all the elements. And then that's really where our ancestors come. I always say that the altars are like little pit stops. Like if you're flying around as a spirit, and it's a pit stop, and you're like, okay, this is, my family remembers me. And this is where I could get water. This is where I could get my food. And this is where I could really get to, remember my family again. And then on the 3rd day is where we kind of say our goodbyes till next year. But I think every day is a day to honor our ancestors and where we come from and that. But yeah, in recent times, it's like, oh, now it's celebrated like October 27th through like November 4th. I think it's, it's growing and changing, and that's the beauty of it. We could all make our own traditions in that way.
Right. So it's all right that the tradition evolves.
Yeah, it has to evolve, because if it's just gonna, sit there, and how is it gonna, you can't expect, a tradition from like 1850 to be still relevant here now until, like it's different times, it's different, like, yeah, it's different, and it needs to evolve. Because if we just keep this tradition so it's like a lid over it over time, and it doesn't have room to breathe or evolve, I feel like it's gonna get lost, or it's gonna, it's like hanging on to a precious jewel, and not giving it any breath, and not, letting it breathe. It's, and just wanting to be yours and yours and yours only, and let it do what it, let it evolve. I like that.
Yeah.
How you said that, yeah.
Now, in your house, I've never been to your house, but I've heard it described that it's very colorful.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have like a permanent altar that you keep in your
Oh,
house?
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. It's in, so we live in a 1920s, like bungalow kind of duplex in Congress Park. And we were really blessed to be here. And yeah, so we have an old fireplace in the front room. And yeah, I have a huge altar. And this is where I do most of my work, out in our backyard. And our big sculptures are out front. We have like a corner lot and a huge garden. All our art is out there, our big paper mache skeletons and artwork. And the neighbors call it like the art house. And all the kids are excited to like see new art every year that comes out, and our garden. And so yeah, my home's really a sanctuary. And yeah, the altar is my safe space where I go every day, or tend to it. So yeah.
Now, you talked about facilitating multiple altars. Do people contact you and ask you, "Hey, would you come do this installation or make this altar?" Is that part of your artist scenario? Is it something that you just kind of put out there to the various communities? How does that work?
So yeah, I've been really blessed where, I haven't really had to reach out a lot this year. And I think it goes with my mindset of what will be for me will be for me. I think when I used to, like try to like, I didn't want to call it chase, but I would reach out and like getting my start in, and um but I feel like when I like chase, or I feel like I'm, wanting to be somewhere so bad, it doesn't always work out. And so I really kind of let things come to me. But also I built relationships with institutions, and they know that I go in, and they know my work, and that I will show up and put an altar up that is in a sacred way. And so, it's just building those relationships with communities, and then the word spreads. And yeah, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger every year. And I just kind of go with it. I have no expectations, and whatever reaches out. And if I decide to say yes, then it's a go. But yeah.
And so, how many altars for this 2025 Day of the Dead have you put together?
I believe it's 7. So like big installations. So yes, we worked on Casa Bonita this year. And then I have one at the Colorado Springs Fine Art Center. We went up into Breckenridge this year and decorated and did a community ofrenda for the whole plaza up in Breckenridge. And then I have one at Arapahoe Smoky Hill Library, Chalk Gallery, and then I have one at Soccer City in Aurora for Botanic Gardens. And I think that's it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a
No,
lot.
that is a lot.
You did
Yeah.
one for the botanical gardens too? The botanic gardens?
So they used to have a big celebration at the gardens, but they actually go into different communities now. So I'm partnered with them, and I do one at this organization called Soccer City in Aurora. And they have a lot of immigrants and refugees and whole communities that play soccer over there. And then I did an altar and a ofrenda for them to honor, their families and all of that. And then, the Botanic Gardens does the Civic Center. So I did that last year, the big event there last year with them.
Wow.
But
Wow. That's pretty cool. I mean, how neat is that there's a soccer center where, all these folks from different cultures congregate, and you get to be part of that and kind of teach them, right?
Yeah, it's really spreading yourself out to different communities. We've gone to Pueblo, we've gone to Boulder, and I really built a team, with Casa Bonita. It was that I needed to build, I needed to spread, the seeds, and spread also the reciprocity with other artists. So, and knowing that I couldn't do it alone. So I have a beautiful business partner. Their name's Val, and really great organizer. And we created a folk art internship this year, and we put a call out, and we got 6 interns, and we paid them And they would work 10 hours a week, and we would show them how to build large scale, paper mache sculptures and how to really build an installation and putting proposals together. And so, yeah, it really, built our community more, and really, learned from each other in ways I didn't expect. So,
Casa Bonita, in case you've never experienced it and you don't live in the Denver metro area, it's iconic, obviously, and it's been renovated and has new life breathed into it. It is absolutely humongous. How do you fill such a large space? And I didn't get the opportunity to go check it out while it was up because you said that yesterday you did the de-installation.
yeah.
And you have this team, but I can't even imagine trying to fill that place and make it look festive for the holiday.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't do it alone, and building these. And it was really like a matter of about 3 months that we built, a lot of work for it. And um, I don't know. We just, like I said, I think just making all the ingredients keep going, and really, going in and just seeing what happens. So it is a big space. It's, it was full circle. I grew up going there when I was a kid. And so, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
How things work.
This group of people, you named the collective, did you not? What do you want to give a shout
Oh
out to them?
yeah, we've called them the Corazon team, the Heart team, Corazon folk art team. Yeah, the Heart team, and yeah, it was amazing. People of color, queer, and all different types of people. That we just all came together and worked our asses off and troubleshooted a lot of things.
What were some of the challenges that you faced?
I think space wise, we worked in our little 2,000 square foot bungalow house that I turned into a whole studio backyard, and seeing what worked and what didn't work, as far as building things that we never built before, and just trusting it and having all of our hands on it. It was everybody touched a sculpture, and then, everybody worked on the same things. And so, yeah, that was some of the challenges just space wise, but yeah.
So what was the largest sculpture that was
I think
created
we
for this?
were like 14 feet.
Wow.
That's huge.
Yeah, and we would just, have it in our little backyard. And
So
yeah.
everything was created at your house in your backyard or
Uh-huh.
in your
In my
studio at
backyard.
home?
Then
Yeah.
you had to then you had to take it there.
Yeah, so I drive a little rainbow truck, and it's a 1999 Chevy Silverado. And yeah, I just fit everything in there. And then of course we hired professional movers
Sure.
because Casa Bonita has like a storage unit, and we put stuff in there. But I didn't have movers there. I would just take stuff one by one, and then have movers help us install and then take down. But yeah, so a lot of coordinating. And
Wow. Yeah, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, sounds like a huge endeavor. And if you go on Cal's Instagram, you can find some various videos of the space and some of the stuff that they created. Or it happens again next year, and some of these creations, I imagine, will be on display there next year.
Yeah, in theory, we'll see. Yeah, things could change, but yeah.
Okay. You do masks as well. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love masks.
How long have you been doing masks? And they're ceramic masks? Is that what they are?
Yeah, they're all mostly ceramic. I guess probably like the last 10 years. Yeah, I think what prompted me, there was a mask show at the art gym. Are you all familiar with the art gym?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a mask show.
Hmm.
Kathleen Sherman. Do you know her?
I do not. No.
Oh, but she's an artist and she was curating it. And I just got really into masks. And yeah, I've been really interested in researching about them um, and how they hold spirits. And I just like creating faces. So I never draw any of them out. I just see what happens, what flows. And I just had a show this year at BMOCA, Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art. And it was all artists of color and curated by Christina Aguilar. And it was about sacred rest and how in the society, how do we rest and tend to ourselves? And I created this installation called the Ancestor Cocoon. And it was about 40 little masks all on these aspen trees. And you like woven in with fabric and saris, Indian saris. And yeah, and you just go in with bells and all these things. And it's just really about how our ancestors are really cocooning us and that their knowledge is our knowledge. And when you think about it, you know, it's said that we have 40,000 ancestors before us. And I think about, you know, a lot of our ancestors went through these same things that we're going through now. And that, you know, that we have to really listen and see how they got through these times. And so, yeah. That's that.
Do you have that work up on your website? The stuff that you have?
I do not. It's on my Instagram. Yeah, I usually like update my website at the end of the year. So
Gotcha. I think I saw that earlier, but I could not find it from the installation at BMOCA, the work that you did there. I want to talk about some of these totems though that you do, and I just pretty amazing.
That's cool.
Oh yeah.
Talk about this piece.
That was like a long time ago. That was like one of my first ones.
It's pretty spectacular, Cal. Just so you know, it's
yeah. Like... I just really was intrigued by totems, but also this idea of our ancestors and generations. They almost see us that we're like standing on the shoulders of the people before us, you know, and that we're all kind of reaching into the cosmos. And so this piece, was just really about that. And I just see totems, you know, as that way of reaching, like also beacons, antennas, you know, and guardians and space holders. And a lot of I've done, I think the biggest one I've done is like 6 feet, but I build them on a big pole and then wrap newspaper around it. And then I get slabs of clay and wrap them around the newspaper and then start sculpting. And then I cut them into pieces like a puzzle. And then that way they could fit in my kiln. And then I assemble it together after. And all this is called cold finishing. And my elder Marie Gibbons taught me that. So all of that is painted with washes and paints rather than glaze. And you paint your whole piece black, and then you dry brush your color, so it really gets that texture of the of all what you're working with.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that's interesting.
That is a really interesting process. Yeah. And this piece here, I think, is extraordinary. Talk about that.
Oh yeah, that was when I was working at this organization called DAVA, Downtown Aurora Visual Arts Center. But they had, I think it was Peace on Earth show was the title. And I just wanted to make this totem about the tree of life. And I think I just like working also with that form of like a tall piece, and then you could just start sculpting on it, like kind of like a relief. But yeah, that was just about that.
And those faces kind of just emerge as you're sculpting them. Yeah. I love the fact that you have a little devil on there, and then looks like a rabbit or something above that. Yeah, that's really cool.
So you also incorporate, like, I could see some of that Indian Hindu religious gods into some of your work. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I just really love the colors of um, India and um, and see how, their gods, their beliefs, their spiritualism really coincides with other indigenous cultures. And I love the folklore. And so, yeah, that's Ganesh, and Ganesh, the god of luck, the remover of obstacles. And then there's Shiva, god of creation. Um, yeah, I just really like learning more about that, since I really wasn't immersed in that culture when part of me when I was growing up. So I feel like I could find that through art.
And those vibrant colors from that culture is what kind of you can see kind of infiltrates the work that you do as far as the vibrancy, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I want to talk about this lovely piece that was recently posted on Instagram, this turtle. Talk a
Oh
little bit about that.
yeah,
Is this a brand new piece?
it is a brand new piece. So I teach on Thursdays at Bicentennial Art Center in Aurora, and I teach adults. So I get some time to like do demos or, pieces and show them like my process. So this was really a piece, and I just, I've been wanting to do a turtle, kind of about Turtle Island.
Mm.
And I was like, and as I was creating it, kind of told me what to do. And just kind of this little puebla, these little clay houses on top of this turtle, and how that we're all, really um connected in this way. And the rainbow, rainbows are universal everywhere, and it's that we all need to come together and build this, this new island, and the wisdom of the turtle and the wisdom of, the ancient. And I actually gave this to somebody. I gave this to a really dear friend that just lost their grandfather. And I was, and that's what sometimes pieces are about too. It's like, I don't need to sell this. Sometimes it's just about giving it away and being a piece for an altar too, and so yeah, that piece was special. So.
Yeah,
It's really lovely. I
is.
really dig this piece, man.
It's cool.
Thanks.
Do you sell pieces like this? Do you have a place that represents you outside of, I know you're part of Chalk, but do you sell your stuff in other galleries?
Yeah, yeah, I don't sell it at a gallery. Yeah, I haven't really had a lot of not success with galleries, but I like to support like stores. So I sell it called Alchemy Ritual Goods. It's on 27th and Arapahoe, and they're all women owned and BIPOC owned. And I sell my art out of there, and it really aligns, as I sell a lot of like sculptures that hold smoke or water, or that are used for spiritual offerings. So yeah, I sell it there.
And then I'm going to pull up a piece of another work here of one of your Ojo de Dios. Is that how you pronounce
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
The God Eye?
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about that because I think it's interesting and you're doing it on like incredible scale that I've never seen before.
Oh yeah, so they're 6 feet by 6 feet, and
Wow.
so my grandma taught me how to make the little ones. And then I was pretty blessed with my friend and teacher, Danette Montoya. Her mom used to make the big ones and knew a lot of different patterns, and showed us how to make them. And then I just kind of took off with it. None of these patterns, I never know what I'm going to do when I'm making it. And I just kind of even make up my own patterns, or not really making it up, but really feeling in tune with the imagination and my lineage and the weavers before me. And I just start weaving, and yeah, that's why I call them portals. I call them portals. So I also teach this to a lot of different communities all over. And yeah, it's just a really meditative space for me. I feel like I go in and kind of look at the chords of my own lineage and see the broken chords and give them acknowledgement and move on, So, um, yeah, it's just really whenever I feel unaligned or I need to like get a spark in my process, I go back to the weaving. And I had a installation and residency at the Children's Museum this year. I think it was in February, the first start of this year. And I taught over 100 kids a day and families, and we co-created this huge chandelier. I created two big ones, and then they created all the little ones, and it's part of their permanent collection at the Children's Museum. So it was a 2-month residency where I really got to show the power of weaving and what these really mean.
That had to have been a great experience to teach that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they were really great to work with, and it was a lot. I'm glad it was only like it was like Friday, Saturday. I think it was, and Sunday, 3 days a week. And,
wow.
But yeah, it was a lot of families and kids, but it was good.
Good. Yeah, those things look so intricate. Like there's so many levels to this weaving process. It's really cool.
It really does, like you're looking into a whole other dimension.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you talked about early on, you have this vision of where you're going, and as you evolve as an artist, being able to say no. So what does that look like moving forward to you in this moment of time?
For me, I want it to feel right, and I want to feel like it's fun. I don't want it, and it's joy, and I want it to feel like collaboration, and I want it to feel like connection, and not to lose sight while we're really creating art, and also for it to make a change. Our art to spark and fuel each other to keep going. So I'm really, really trusting what will be for me will be for me, but also really trusting my boundaries and what's in my integrity as an artist and who I want to work with, and because really who we work with is a reflection of who we are too and what we put up with and being authentic and standing up for, our integrity. So, but yeah.
So who out there would you like to work with that maybe you haven't worked with yet?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of different artists I admire, but I don't know. I think I'll let spirit take that. Take the lead for me. I don't know. We'll see.
That sounds just something like you would say. I mean, that's so authentic right there.
You have on your Instagram that goes to a website about sacred ceremony and retreats.
Oh, yeah.
Talk a little bit about that because I want to know a little bit more about what that's all about.
Yeah. So me and my partner, and we have another beautiful healer and friend. So there's three of us, a trinity. And so, yeah, we hold space for fire ceremonies. And we've all been studying kundarismo, learning from different healers and elders all over, and different plant medicine ceremonies. But yeah, really just cultivating a space for community, for free fire ceremonies. We do river clearings and yeah, just really holding space for the sacred and just having a space for people to really come back to circle. I think we've lost that in our society is coming back to the sacred circle and that peer support, that reclamation of the land, the remembering of the land. So yeah, we do a lot of different things and have cultivated that in the last few years. And we have a retreat. We're going to Mexico in a few weeks, and we just travel and same thing. Who's supposed to be there is supposed to be there, and we just let kind of spirit guide us and really just be in service to what is calling in the field right now. So
that's amazing.
When you're talking plant medicine and incorporate it in ceremonies, what does that mean?
Like we work with the honguitos, the mushrooms, and we get to really hold space for that. And yeah.
We've had a lot of discussion as of late, it seems like, about plant medicine. So I was just kind of curious about what that entailed and what we were talking about as far as plant medicine.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's that. And I think in these times too, it's getting really commercialized and consumed. And I think it's really, you know, holding it in a sacred way and in a ceremonial way. I think, the mushrooms want to be in community, but held in a space of honoring rather than consumption.
Yeah. And it seems like we're moving away from that, right? The spirit side and going more into recreational consumption.
Yeah, where I think it needs that. It needs to be in a ceremony. So, yeah, we're always learning and always growing from different teachers and elders and each other and the medicine too, and not abusing it in ways, and so yeah, it's been a journey. I don't know. I'm just really honored to be called and learn from that.
And once again, it like fits perfectly in your whole scheme of your art, your philosophy and everything. It's just all like it's all connected.
Yeah, it really is. It is about that. And there's something about, when you make a vessel with your own spirit, your own hands, that holds smoke for like a sacred, ceremony. It has your essence, it has your spirit, it has your connection, and then that's going up into the sky and going back into the air, so it's all a living, breathing organism of you when it's all hand in hand.
What does the rest of 2025 into 2026 look like for you? Is there something on the horizon that you have going on? Any other shows between now and the end of the year, or stuff that is happening in 2026 coming up?
I don't. I mean, yeah, up in the air with Casa Bonita. I mean, that's kind of probably something we're gonna do again. But yeah, no, that's kind of how it was last year too. I don't really have anything too big yet, but we'll see. It's a new adventure, it's a new adventure every year. And I honestly thought this year was going to be like really kind of slow and, with like everybody's like, they're cutting the arts, it's all dead. And I'm like, okay, we'll see. But
amazing. Yeah.
it was, I think we have to have that faith too. That faith, is the fabric of the universe. And when we have faith and in ourselves and in our art, it begins to create its own path.
How do you keep that faith in these times when it feels pretty dark, at least for a lot of people? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think you need to go and really be with the earth, like go into the mountains, go by the river, cleanse yourself in the river. It's how do you find these grounding points? You have to really, we get so consumed by the fear that's going on. It's that's what I see. It's just like fear swamping, and it's just fear and fear and fear. And if we're so consumed, and of course we need to maybe know what's happening and what's going on, but then you get trapped. And then what really can ground us is going back and just looking at the beauty of what's here,
Yeah.
is going to the waters, or even just sitting and lighting a candle and thanking yourself. It's gratitude, It's what Renee really teaches me is gratitude in everything that we do, gratitude to wake up, gratitude to even experience this life and all the ebbs and flows and chaos and fear that we really get to, experience this for the ones who didn't have the opportunity to. So yeah, that's how I harness faith.
Well, I really appreciate taking the time this evening to sit down with us. And man, I really respect where you're coming from, and you've given me something to ponder, a different way of looking at things, and I do appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it too. And it's, I think it's these conversations and making time for what feels aligned, and it sparks each other, it helps me even look away, to step back and look what I have created, because I don't always do that.
Right.
And it helps me see, really my path and to keep going. So you've really sparked that in me too. So thank you.
Yeah.
My last question for you, Cal, before we let off tonight. Do you have a mantra or motto that you live by?
That I live by. Yeah, I think right now, I mean, there's different ones. I think I go through seasons of mantras, but yeah, I think what will be for me will be for me right now. And yeah, and to just really be moment to moment is really what I tell myself too, is because that's the real work, is how do we embrace the moment? And I think we think so far ahead of what if or what could happen, is like when we really just have to embrace the moment.
Yeah.
Good
point.
Love that. As Wes already said, thank you so much for spending time with us, especially for how busy you've been. And I know you've been going 100 miles an hour. So it means the world to us. Like we always say, time is the most precious thing that we have. So the fact that you were willing to spend time with us this evening, we just really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Again, check out Cal's breathtaking work on his website, artbycal.com, and follow Cal on Instagram at Valera Duran. And if you happen to be downtown, stop in at History Colorado and experience Cal's Ofrenda, his tribute to the iconic textile artist and corn mother Rita Wallace de Flores. You can view it now through the 9th of November. As usual, I will have all this and more in this week's episode notes. For the Tenet Podcast, I'm Todd Pearson.
And I'm Wes Brown.
Have a great week.